Here's an interesting hike in the Palos Verde's Peninsula along the Bluff Top Trail. This is a quite highly developed area with some very nice luxury homes and some pretty nice resorts. And it's also a quite beautiful area. And so we began our trek along the Bluff Top Trail. This is a very well-maintained trail, and it contains occasional lookout spots where you can take a look at this beautiful coastal scenery. One of which is a look across at the Point Vicente Lighthouse. We'll be taking a closer look at this lighthouse a little bit later, but for now it stands out on the point at Vicente Point. We can also look over and see what is called the Vicente Point fishing access at Long Point. And we did see some fishermen along the way doing their thing. A little further along on this Bluff Top Trail, we can still look back and see the good old Point Vicente Lighthouse. This is a U.S. Coast Guard facility that we'll pay a visit to a little bit later. Along the way, we get a visit from a few flying seabirds. And here Dale makes his way down along the trail. And of course a few fishing boats along the way. Many times you'd be able to look over and see Santa Catalina Island off the coast. But although a beautiful day for us, there was a fog bank out off the coast that made it almost impossible to see the island. And then we noticed a flat area notched out of the seaside cliffs that appeared to create a beach-like area. And so we wended our way down towards it. And found that it was in fact a beach area called Terranea Cove. Not, however, what you'd really call a sandy beach. Actually, it seemed to be connected with the seaside resort in the background there. We also noticed these interesting rock formations along the seaside cliff. And there are areas that are still moving down towards the ocean. Actually, a lot of these Palos Verde's areas are quite unstable. We thought we'd make our way back down towards this resort area. And on the way, we were greeted by another flock of seabirds. We found this to be a very extensive resort area with several swimming pool areas, restaurants, and so forth. But then it was on along the Bluff Top Trail. And then at one point we ran across this memorial to someone who apparently had fallen off the cliff and never made it. And a bit further along were some residences. When it came right on up to the Bluff Top Trail, we found where some residents had created some rather interesting displays, including this one, which said, "Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight." Very poetic. Along the trail, Jack stops for a minute to take in some sun. As did also a group of seabirds on some rocks along the coast. They also left their white calling cards on tops of the rocks. But then after getting back to our starting point, we decided to take a visit to the Point Vicente Interpretive Center. This is a quite nice facility. There's a lot of interesting artifacts about the area and the sea life, especially the whales. This is a prime viewing site for migrating whales from the north coast down into the warmer Mexican waters and back again. This is also quite close to the good old Point Vicente Lighthouse. We found that the gate to the lighthouse was open today, so we decided to pay it a visit. And after signing in, we were able to travel the spiral staircase that goes on up to the top. And here Dale works his way on up towards the beacon at the top. The final access is more of a ladder than it is a stairway, but it did get us on up there. And there at the top is the rotating beacon. No doubt a friendly sight to those out on the ocean. And from the top we can look down and see a Coast Guard helicopter on the landing pad down below. And so we retraced our steps down the ladder and down the spiral staircase. In a building alongside the tower itself, a small museum with some interesting information on the history of the lighthouse and its area. This Coast Guard facility included several buildings and everything manicured to perfection. And before leaving, I had to have my picture taken next to the helicopter under the watchful eye of a Coast Guardsman. And then, of course, Dale had to do the same thing. A helicopter that looks more like a toy than a flying machine. And so we ended a really interesting and informative day in good old Southern California.